Dinner time, Isaiah chapter 8. And Jehovah said to me, Take a large tablet, and write on it with a man's pen concerning Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And let me take reliable witnesses to record, Uriah the priest, and Zechariah son of Yeberechiah. And I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. And Jehovah said to me, Call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz. For before the child knows to cry, my father and my mother, the riches of Damasek and the spoil of Shomron is taken away before the sovereign of Ashshur. And Jehovah spoke to me again, saying, Inasmuch as these people refused the waters of Shiloh, that flow softly, and rejoice in Retzin and in Ramalyahu's son, now therefore see, Jehovah brings up over them the waters of the river, strong and mighty, the sovereign of Ashshur and all his esteem, and he shall come up over his channels and go over all his banks. And he shall pass through Yehuda, he shall overflow and pass over, reaching up to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall feel the breath of your land, O Emmanuel. Be shattered, O you peoples, and be broken in pieces. Give ear, all you from the far places of the earth. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Take counsel, and it comes to naught. Speak a word, and it does not stand, for El is with us. For Jehovah spoke thus to me with a strong hand, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of this people, saying, Do not say a conspiracy concerning all that his people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Jehovah of hosts, him you shall set apart. Let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. And he shall be for a set-apart place, but a stone of stumbling, and a rock that makes for falling to both the house of Israel, as a trap and a snare to the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And many among them shall stumble and fall, and be broken and snared and taken. Bind up the witness, seal the Torah among my taught ones. And I shall wait on Jehovah, who hides his face from the house of Yaakov, and I shall look for him. Look, I and the children whom Jehovah has given me, for signs and wonders in Israel, from Jehovah of hosts, who dwells in Mount Sion. And when they say to you, Seek those who are mediums and wizards, who whisper and mutter, should not a people seek their Elohim? Should they seek the dead on behalf of the living? To the Torah and to the witness, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because they have no daybreak. And they shall pass through it hard-pressed and hungry. And it shall be, when they are hungry, that they shall be wroth and curse their sovereign and their Elohim, looking upward. And they shall look to the earth and see distress and darkness, gloom of hard times, and be driven into thick darkness. But there is no gloom upon her who is distressed. And when at first he humbled the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward more heavily oppressed her by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan, in Galil of the nations. The people who were walking in darkness have seen a great light. Upon those who dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, a light has shone. You shall increase the nations, you shall make its joy great. They shall rejoice before you, as in the joy of harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For you shall break the yoke of his burden, and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every boot of one trampling in tumult, and coat rolled in blood, shall be used for burning and fuel of fire. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder. And his name is called Wonder, Counselor, Strong El, Father of Continuity, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his rule and peace there is no end, upon the throne of David and over his reign, to establish it and sustain it with right ruling and with righteousness from now on, even forever. The ardor of Jehovah of hosts does this. Jehovah sent a word against Yaakov, and it has fallen on Yisrael. And the people shall know, all of them, Ephraim and the inhabitants of Shomeron, who say in pride and greatness of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we rebuild with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we replace them with cedars. And Jehovah set up the adversaries of Retzin against him, and stirred up his enemies, the Arameans before, and the Philistines behind, and they devour Israel with an open mouth. With all this, his displeasure has not turned back, and his hand is still stretched out. And the people have not turned back to him who strikes them, nor have they sought Jehovah of hosts. And Jehovah cuts off head and tail from Israel, palm branch and reed in one day, elder and highly respected. He is the head, the prophet who teaches falsehood. He is the tail. For the leaders of this people lead them astray, and those who are guided by them are swallowed up. Therefore Jehovah does not rejoice over their young men, and has no compassion on their fatherless and widows. For everyone is defiled and evil, and every mouth speaks foolishness. With all this, his displeasure has not turned back, and his hand is still stretched out. For wrongness burns as the fire. It consumes thorn bushes and weeds, and sets the bushes of the forest ablaze, and they roll up like rising smoke. The land shall be burned up by the wrath of Jehovah of hosts, and the people be as fuel for the fire. A man shall not spare his brother, and cut down on the right hand, but shall be hungry. And he devours on the left hand, but shall not be satisfied, each one devouring the flesh of his own arm. Menasheh, Ephraim, and Ephraim, Menasheh, together they are against Yehudah. With all this his displeasure is not turned back, and his hand is still stretched out. Woe to those making unrighteous inscriptions, and writers who have prescribed toil, to keep the needy back from the right ruling, and to take what is right from the poor of my people, that widows become their prey and orphans their plunder. What shall you do in the day of visitation, and in the ruin which comes from afar? To whom would you run for help? And where would you leave your wealth? Without me they shall bow down among the prisoners, and fall among the killed. With all this his displeasure has not turned back, and his hand is still stretched out. Woe to Ashur, the rod of my displeasure, and the staff in whose hand is my displeasure. Against a defiled nation I send him, and against the people of my wrath I command him to seize the spoil, to take the prey, and to tread them down like the mud of the streets. But he does not intend so, nor does his heart think so, for it is in his heart to destroy and cut off not a few nations. For he says, are not my princes sovereigns? Is not Calno like Carchemish? Is not Hamath like Arpad? Is not Shomeron like Damasek? As my hand has found the reins of the idols, whose carved images excelled those of Yerushalayim and Shomron. As I have done to Shomron and her idols, do I not do also to Yerushalayim and her idols? And it shall be, when Jehovah has performed all his work on Mount Sion and on Yerushalayim, that I shall punish the fruit of the greatness of the heart of the sovereign of Ashur, and the boasting as his haughty looks. For he has said, by the power of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, for I have been clever, and I remove the boundaries of the people, and I have robbed their treasuries, and I put down the inhabitants like a strong one. And my hand finds the riches of the people like a nest, and I have gathered all the earth like forsaken eggs are gathered. And there was no one who moved his wing, nor opened his mouth with even a peep. Would the axe boast itself over him who chops with it, or the saw exult itself over him who saws with it? As a rod waving those who lift it up, as a staff lifting up that which is not wood. Therefore the Master Jehovah of hosts sends leanness among his fat ones, and under his esteem he kindles a burning like the burning of a fire. And the light of Yisrael shall be for a fire, and a set apart one for a flame, and it shall burn and devour his weeds and his thorn bushes in one day, and consume the esteem of his forest, and all his fertile field, both life and flesh, and they shall be as when a sick man wastes away. And the remaining trees of his forest shall be so few in number that a child records them. And in that day it shall be that the remnant of Yisrael and those who have escaped of the house of Yaakov never again lean upon him who struck them, but shall lean upon Jehovah, the set-apart one of Yisrael in truth. A remnant shall return, the remnant of Yaakov, to the mighty El. For though your people, O Yisrael, be as the sand of the sea, yet a remnant of them shall return, a decisive end, overflowing with righteousness. For the Master Jehovah of hosts is making a complete end, as decided, in the midst of all the earth. Therefore, thus said the Master Jehovah of hosts, my people who dwell in Sion, be not afraid of Ashur, who struck you with a rod and lifts up his staff against you in the way of Mizraim. For yet a little while, and this displeasure shall be completed, and my displeasure to be their destruction. And Jehovah of hosts stirs up a lash for him as the smiting of Midian at the rock of Oreb. And as his rod was on the sea, so shall he lift it up in the way of Mizraim. And in that day it shall be that his burden is removed from your shoulder, and his yoke from your neck, and the yoke shall be destroyed because of the anointing oil. He has come upon Ayath, he has passed Migron. At Michmash he stored his supplies. They have gone through the pass, they have taken up lodging at Geba. Ramah is afraid, Geba of Shaul has fled. Lift up your voice, O daughter of Galim. Listen, Laisha, O poor Anathoth. Madmenah has fled. The inhabitants of Gebim sought refuge. Yet he remains at Nob that day. He shakes his fist at the mountain of the daughter of Sion, the hill of Yerushalayim. Look, the Master Jehovah of hosts is lopping off a branch with an awesome crash, and the tall ones are cut down, and the lofty ones are laid low. And he shall cut down the thickets of the forest with iron, and Lebanon shall fall as mighty one. And a rod shall come forth from the stump of Yeshai, and a sprout from his root shall be fruitful. The Spirit of Jehovah shall rest upon him, the spirit of wisdom and understanding, the spirit of counsel and might, the spirit of knowledge and of the fear of Jehovah, and shall make him breathe in the fear of Jehovah. And he shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and shall decide with straightness for the meek ones of the earth, and shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and slay the wrong with the breath of his lips. And righteousness shall be the girdle of his loins, and trustworthiness the girdle of his waist. And a wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and a leopard lie down with the young goat, and the calf and the young lion and the fatlings together, and a little child leads them. And cow and bear shall feed, their young ones lie down together, and the lion eats straw like an ox. And the nursing child shall play by the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the adder's den. They do no evil nor destroy in all my set-apart mountain, for the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of Jehovah as the waters cover the sea. And in that day there shall be a root of Yeshai, standing as a banner to the people. Unto him the nations shall seek, and his rest shall be esteemed. And it shall be in that day that Jehovah sets his hand against a second time to recover the remnant of his people who are left. From Ashur and from Mizraim, from Pathros and from Cush, from Elam and Shinar, from Hamath and from the islands of the sea. And he shall raise a banner for the nations, and gather the outcast of Yisrael, and assemble the dispersed of Yehudah from the four corners of the earth. And the envy of Ephraim shall turn aside, and the adversaries of Yehudah be cut off. Ephraim shall not envy Yehudah, and Yehudah not trouble Ephraim. But they shall fly down upon the shoulders of the Philistines toward the west. Together they plunder the poor of the east, their hand stretching forth on Edom and Moab, and the children of Ammon shall be subject to them. And Jehovah shall put under the ban the tongue of the sea of Mizraim, and he shall wave his hand over the river with the might of his spirit, and shall strike it in the 7 streams, and shall cause men to tread in its sandals. And there shall be a highway for the remnant of his people, those left from Ashur. And it came for Yisrael in the day when he came up from the land of Mizraim. And in that day you shall say, I thank you, Jehovah, though you were enraged with me, your displeasure has turned back, and you have comforted me. See, El is my deliverance. I trust and am not afraid. For Jehovah is my strength and my song, and he has become my deliverance. And you shall draw water with joy from the fountains of deliverance. And in that day you shall say, Praise Jehovah, call upon his name, make known his deeds among the peoples, make mention that his name is exalted. Sing to Jehovah, for he has done excellently. This is known in all the earth. Cry aloud and shout, O inhabitant of Zion, for great is the set-apart one of Yisrael in your midst. The message concerning Babel, which Yeshayahu son of Amoz saw. Lift up a banner on the high mountain. Raise your voice to them. Wave your hand. Let them enter the gates of the nobles. I have commanded my set-apart ones. I have also called my mighty men for my displeasure, my proudly exulting ones. The noise of an uproar in the mountains, like that of many people, a noise of uproar of the rains, of nations gathered together. Jehovah of hosts is gathering an army for battle. They are coming from a distant land, from the end of the heavens, even Jehovah and his weapons of displeasure, to destroy all the earth. Howl, for the day of Jehovah is near. It comes as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore all hands go limp, every man's heart melts. And they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows take hold of them. They are in pain as a woman in labor. They are amazed at one another, their faces aflame. See, the day of Jehovah is coming, fierce with wrath and heat of displeasure, to lay the earth waste and destroy its sinners from it. For the stars of the heavens and their constellations do not give off their light. The sun shall be dark as its rising, and the moon not send out its light. And I shall punish the world for its evil, and the wrong for their crookedness. And I shall put an end to the arrogance of the proud, and lay low the pride of the ruthless. I shall make mortal man scarcer than fine gold, and mankind scarcer than the gold of Ophir. So I shall make the heavens tremble, and the earth shall shake from her place. In the wrath of Jehovah of hosts, and in the days of the heat of his displeasure, and it shall be as the hunted gazelle, and as a sheep that no man takes up. Every man turns to his own people, and everyone flees to his own land. Whoever is found is thrust through, and everyone taken falls by the sword. And their children are dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses plundered, and their wives ravished. See, I am stirring up the Medes against them, who do not regard silver, and as for gold, they do not delight in it. And bows dash the young to pieces, and they have no compassion on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes spare no children. And Babel, the splendor of reigns, the comeliness of the pride of the Kasdim, shall be as when Elohim overthrew Sodom and Amorah. She shall never be inhabited, nor be settled from generation to generation. Nor shall the Arabian pitch tents there, nor shepherds rest their flocks there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be filled with owls, and ostriches shall dwell there, and wild goats frolic there. And hyenas shall cry in their citadels, and jackals in their pleasant places. And her time is near to come, and her days are not drawn out. But Jehovah has compassion on Yaakov, and shall again choose Yisrael, and give them rest in their own land. And the strangers shall join them, and they shall cling to the house of Yaakov. And the people shall take them and bring them to their own place. And the house of Yisrael shall possess them for servants and female servants in the land of Jehovah. And they shall make captives of their captors, and rule over their oppressors. And it shall be in the day Jehovah gives you rest from your sorrow, and from your trouble, and the hard service in which you were made to serve, that you shall take up this proverb against the sovereign of Babel, and say, how the oppressor has ceased, the gold gathered ceased. Jehovah has broken the staff of the wrong, the scepter of the rulers. He who struck the people in wrath with ceaseless blows, he who ruled the nations in displeasure, is persecuted with no restraints. All the earth is at rest and at peace. They shall break forth into singing. Even the cypress trees rejoice over you, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since you were cut down, no woodcutter has come up against us. Sheol from beneath is excited about you, to meet you at your coming. It stirs up the dead for you, all the chief ones of the earth. It has raised up from their thrones all the sovereigns of the nations. All of them respond and say to you, have you also become as weak as we? Have you become like us? Your arrogance has been brought down to Sheol, and the sound of your stringed instruments. The maggot is spread under you, and worms cover you. How you have fallen from the heavens, O Hallel, son of the morning. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the nations. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the heavens, let me raise my throne above the stars of El, and let me sit in the mount of appointment on the sides of the north. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds, let me be like the Most High. But you are brought down to Sheol, to the sides of the pit. Those who see you stare at you and ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the earth tremble, who shook rains, who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who would not open the house of his prisoners? All the sovereigns of the nations, all of them were laid in esteem, everyone in his own house. But you have been thrown from your burial site like an abominable branch, like the garment of those who are killed, thrust through with a sword, who go down to the stones of the pit like a trampled corpse. You are not joined with them in the burial place, for you have destroyed your land and killed your people. Let the seed of evildoers never be mentioned. Prepare his children for slaughter, because of the crookedness of their fathers, lest they rise up and possess the land and fill the face of the world with cities. And I shall rise up against them, declares Jehovah of hosts, and shall cut off from Babel the name and remnant, and offspring and descendants, declares Jehovah. And I shall make it a possession for the porcupine, and marshes of muddy water, and shall sweep it with the broom of destruction, declares Jehovah of hosts. Jehovah of hosts has sworn, saying, truly as I have planned, so shall it be, and as I have purposed, so it stands, to break Ashshur in my land, and tread him down on my mountains, and his yoke shall be removed from them, and his burden removed from their shoulders. This is the counsel that is counseled for all the earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out over all the nations. For Jehovah of hosts has counseled, and who annuls it? And his hand that is stretched out, who turns it back? This is the message which came in the year that sovereign of Ahaz died. Do not rejoice, all you Philistia, that the rod that struck you is broken. For out of the serpent's roots come forth an adder, and its offspring is a fiery flying serpent. And the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy lie down in safety. And I shall kill your roots with scarcity of food, and it shall kill your remnant. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, melt away, all you of Philistia. For smoke shall come from the north, and there is no stranger in his ranks. And what does one answer the messengers of a nation? That Jehovah has founded Zion, and the poor of his people take refuge in it.